Okay, so in this video we will cover UiPath's GenAI Content Generation activity. And I know it's been a long time since I've uploaded any videos. So this will be my first video on UiPath in general. So let's get started. We will cover only one activity in this video. After that, we will cover the context grounding and various related activities of GenAI. So let's go to activities panel, and if you just type Gen AI, okay, you would get almost all the activities that come under it. So it's not a package; it's an integration service connection. So you just have to make sure that the available filter is on, or just keep everything enabled so that you will get this. Okay. So here's content generation, and you need not worry about the dependencies or which dependency to install. So if you just drag and drop, uh, everything will be done for you. So as that happens, uh, in content generation, just like any other Gen AI, what you say models out there, system prompt and user prompt will play a very important role. So as you can see, content generation is loading. Okay, so in your case, if it's the first time that you are creating a connection, obviously you have to go and click add new connection. It will take you to your default browser, open the cloud, UiPath cloud environment, and it will ask you to connect to your integration service. Now it's done in my case, so I'll just move ahead with the model name. Now as of now, these are the following models that are offered by UiPath. So let's go with GPT Forum. Okay, now comes the prompt and the system prompt. Okay, prompt here means the user prompt, if you are more familiar with that. And system prompt, you might be aware. It's where you define what the model will do. So by default, it is set to you are a helpful assistant. And in the properties field, you can see the various different options like temperature, frequency penalty, presence penalty, top P, and the outputs. Okay, you have top generated text, that is the main output that we will use. Mask text, it is nothing but when you enable PII detection. What it is, we will discuss later. Then, yeah, content generation variable, you don't need that. Then citation strings, in case if you have enabled context grounding, which we will cover in the future in some future video. So for now we will just go with the basics. So let me just create an assign statement, okay, so that I can assign the system prompt and user prompt. Okay. Okay, here we have system prompt and user prompt. Um, I'll just copy one user prompt that I have already. Okay, let me give the user prompt over here. Okay, as of now, I won't give anything in the system prompt. Okay, so my user prompt is what is UiPath RPA? Explain in 100 words. Okay, and I will not supply the system prompt variable. Let it stay as you are a helpful assistant. Let me go with the user prompt. Okay. The output will be top generated text. So if you see in the properties panel, I have created a variable for top generated text. Okay. So now we'll stay with the default temperature as 0 and top P is equal to 1. And let's see what output we get. Okay, do we have an error there? Oh, okay. We have two quotes. I'll remove one. Okay. So now let's see in the locals panel or maybe the immediates panel to see how the output is looking. It takes okay, we have already reached the breakpoint. So let's see the top generated text. And there you go. As mentioned, we have the explanation in 100 words that is generated by GPT-4. Now let's go step by step or based on the properties. We have maximum tokens count. Maximum token count combines both the input tokens and the output tokens and how much should the GenAI model consider. So in this case, since in the user prompt I have mentioned 200 words, I have restricted it to 200 words. But if I change the maximum token count to something lower, maybe 100 tokens or 50 tokens, it might cut off somewhere in the middle. Okay, that is because maximum token count will make sure to stop whatever the GenAI is generating to that particular token count. After that, whatever it's generating is just completely stopped. So you will have incomplete sentences. So based on your use case, you can play with it, but make sure that you set a very high number so that whatever you generated you have complete output, you have a complete output, you don't have some incomplete sentences. Okay, so that's for maximum tokens count. Now let's come to the main thing, temperature and top p. So temperature defines the creativity of the output. It gives the freedom for GPT-4o to be creative in its output. So 0 being the least, 1 being the maximum. And then we have top P over here. So top P also ranges from 0 to 1. Now what is top P? Top P is like, I would say, how many samples of tokens would it consider to be most likely. As you know, GenAI is just completing sentences, right? Based on token. What is the most probable token that would come after the current token? So it tries to complete sentences based on the most likely tokens. So top P will it will decide how much of the sample to be considered. So if it's confusing, let me show you through a OneNote sketch. Okay, so let me sketch this. So consider these are some random words. Okay, yeah, these random words here that is generated. Okay, some random words, and this is the chart being from most likely to the least likely. Okay, these are the most unlikely words, these are the most likely words. So what would top P do is, if you set it to 1, it will take into consider the entire sample space. Okay, and then temperature will allow the model to choose any word. If you give it 0, it will try to play safe, it will try to take one of the most likely words in this area. But if you set a temperature of 1, you are giving it creativity. It would choose from the entire sample space provided by top P. What if I take top P as zero point 0.5? It'll take 50% of the most likely words. Rest of them are not considered. So the 50% of most likely words are considered, and then the temperature will help GPT to choose which is the most likely token to complete the sentence. So in other words, you can play with these two values, but the best way to do is keep the temperature low and the top P high. This will give it, the GPT model to be very specific and accurate because of the low temperature. but also gives it freedom to choose from a vocabulary, a wider vocabulary of words because of a higher top P. If you set a lower top P, you will have lesser diversity of words, but because of a higher temperature, you might get fictional and inaccurate answers, or maybe sentences that do not make sense. So for an RPA use case, it is recommended to keep a lower temperature and a higher top speed, because that's what we want, right? We want something that is accurate and output that is not 100%. You will never get 100% accurate results, right? So maybe very close to an accurate result, which is way more specific. But the higher top P will make sure that the sentences also make sense. So if you can see here, when I asked the model to explain UiPath in 100 words, it was able to explain UiPath RPA is a software platform designed to automate repetitive and rule-based tasks typically performed by humans, etc., etc. And you can see the words make sense. The sentences also are clean. It is specific. So this is the output that we have got. Now I want you to follow certain rules. You can see it has just dumped one paragraph of uh, that is 100 words, right? Yeah, so 100 words, it just dumped it here. I want it to be in bullet points. I want the output to be much better formatted, and I want to be specific of what I really need in the output, not just a generic explanation. Maybe I need the features of UiPath, top 5 features, etc., of any technology. I want the user prompt to be dynamic. That can be done by playing with the system prompt and the user prompt. So let's go to, let me change the value. Let me pass the system prompt here now. Okay, I have passed the system prompt now. And let me change the system prompt here. Okay, I have changed the system prompt now. And okay, there you go. So this is my system prompt. I don't know whether it's visible. I guess it's visible now, right? So I have mentioned that you are a technical FAQ assistant. The user will ask you to explain a particular technical concept. You must explain that concept. You will follow the rules given below, and I've given it 4 rules. You can go through it by pausing the video. I've given it 5 rules, sorry, and then I've given it some restrictions or some things that it should definitely make sure to follow. I want the output should not include any markdown content such as bold, italic, and heading styles, etc. Output should not include emojis or any vector-based components. And I've given it a example input. Now the example input could be, like it is to help the model understand what I will be giving it, what it should expect from me, and what I will be expecting from it. So the input will be just the technology name, and output should be like this. So I've given it a sample input and a sample output. You can place the sample input and output in the user prompt or in the system prompt. It's up to you, whichever works feasible. It's recommended to put in the system prompt because that will make sure that these are the defined set of rules that the model should follow. Unless your use case will have a very dynamic user prompt where a particular input needs an output in a specific way, and so you place that example over there. You can maintain the examples in a config file maybe, and so that depending upon the user input, you can change the example accordingly. So you can place the example anywhere, maybe the system prompt or the user prompt. I have placed it in the system prompt for my use case. Okay. um, okay, I didn't save that. Okay, in the user prompt, I will just paste UiPath. Okay, because that's how I have defined the input in the example, right? So I'll be just giving the technology name as the input. and the system prompt will be defining all the rules that the content generation model should follow. So let's debug this and see what output we may get. Okay, we've reached the breakpoint. So let me display top generated text now. And as you can see, the output is much clearer, very well formatted, and it is according to the rules that I have specified. It's given a title, it's given a small introduction, the top 5 features, a sample use case, and a summary. So this is how you can play with the system prompt and the user prompt. This will play a very key role once agentic automation comes into picture, because you will be playing with the prompts there. So it's very important to understand prompt engineering. So that's why I started with the GenAI activities, and in the future we will cover agentic automation as well. So let's go with the next thing. I spoke about temperatures, right? You can play with the temperatures, change it between 0 to 1 for the same system prompt and output prompt, user prompt, and see what you can get. So I will maybe we'll experiment a bit here and see what output we may get if we do the other way around, a higher temperature and maybe a lower top P. And let's see what we may get. Okay, the top P, it's not allowing 0.2. Okay. One of the another best features we have right now is the autopilot for developers. Just easy. It will solve your problem much faster than going and searching for the solution everywhere. So there you go. The problem is solved just by using autopilot for developers. And okay, now let's run it again and let's see what output we may get. So as I mentioned, a higher temperature will give it creative freedom, and a lower top P will give it a lesser diversity of words. Even though it will give it the most likely words, but still, let's see the difference in the output. Okay, we can't see much difference here, but if you copy paste and check the vocabulary or read it through, you may or may not find much difference, but it's fine. You can compare it. I'll copy paste the outputs, and you can decide for yourself which values work best. So even in your any of your use cases, try to experiment. Whatever works best, use it. So now user prompt can be passed as a variable with additional rules. Okay, so what do I mean by that? um, in our case, I have just passed user prompt is equal to UiPath. You can do something else, like as I mentioned about the example. If your use case is much more dynamic, what you could do, you could maybe create something like a variable topic. Okay, that will be the main topic. Then let us just use a next line. ChatGPT will understand the plus slash n is a next line, so you need not worry about that. Or you can use environment.newline, and then maybe whatever additional rules I might have from maybe the config file or anywhere else. And you can do it something like this. The user prompt is also dynamic. You can pass the main input, then the additional rules that you might follow, or just the input in general, which you can anyway directly pass in the prompt section. So that's with user prompt. Now let's go to another very important topic, the PII detection. So what is PII detection? So PII detection will try to detect any personal information present in the user prompt or the input that you have provided. So what do I mean by that? Let me show you one system prompt, okay, of a particular use case. It is a very short system prompt, okay. So let me just remove this, paste this. So the system prompt is such: you are given a short job application, extract position applied for, and years of experience. If these details are not found in the input, then output a message stating that it was not found. Okay, that's the system prompt that I've said. And in the user prompt, I'll give the job application. Okay, it's just a sample job application, so it's like, don't take it like a serious job application. It's just a dummy string, random string that I've created. So yeah, I've given this information. John Doe's credit card number is so and so. I know there won't be a credit card detail in a job application, but I've just created some sample data with personal information in it. So you can see there is a credit card number, there is a social security number (SSN), his phone number, his address, and it's in a slightly unstructured format, right? It's not in some tabular format or something. You have a credit card number here, the SSN is here, the address is not written in some address subheading, it's present within a sentence. So, and I mentioned here that please remove or redact any personal identifiable information from this text. I've just specified it. As I mentioned, in the user prompt, you can give additional rules, right? Right. So this could be an additional rule. So let this be the user prompt, and I'll do PII detection as true. As soon as I set it true, you'll get some additional features to play with. And when you just set PII detection to true, it will just detect it, but it will not mask it before sending it as an input to the model. So the purpose of PII detection is to filter any personal information before feeding it to the model, in case if that data is very sensitive, etc. And just like the PI just means personal information, right? So you don't want any personal information to be fed to the model. So let me do the masked text output, okay? And now let me just set it as true. A detection as true, filtering as false. And what is the PIL language? So what is the language that I'm feeding it in? English. So there's a wide variety, okay, so of languages, but since my input is in English, I'll just mention English. And what am I trying to detect? There's a wide variety of personal information that you can hide. So in my case, we had credit card details, SSN number, etc., right? So let me go with SSN. It is here, US social security number. Then maybe credit card, let's hide the credit card number, okay. Do we have credit card somewhere here? So we have credit card number, and okay, let it be that. And as far as the user prompt is system prompt, I'm trying to extract position applied for and years of experience, right? So is that detail there in the input? Okay, we don't have that detail at all. So let's see if the model is able to give a dummy output, or will it tell, as per the system prompt, it should say that the detail is not found at all. So let's see, will it give that output or not? Okay, so let us set this. So technically it should hide these numbers, and the output should just say nothing is found, because there isn't a job, a role that he's applying for, nor there is any uh, years of experience mentioned in the user prompt. So the output should be not found. And let's see what PI detection does to the input. Okay, so let's just run this. Okay, we've reached the breakpoint. Now let's see the top generated text. As you can see, the output is the provided text does not contain the information about position applied for or years of experience, which is true. We don't have such information in the input. What about masked text? Has it masked the credit card number and SSN? No. As you can see, the input is still the same. The credit card number was not masked and the SSN was also not masked. Why is that? Because PI detection was set to true, but the filtering was set to false. So you technically did not hide any data before sending it in. So what if I enable it? Let's see the difference in the masked text. So I'll just set it to true, and now let's debug again. Okay, now once it's debugged, let's check. The top generated text will remain the same. I need not go to it again. Okay, so as you can see, it was able to detect the SSN, but it was not able to detect credit card. Why is that? So it's not as accurate. Now let's try rerunning it and check again. So it was still not able to detect. So credit card number was not able to detect. Could it be that the credit card number was not real? Maybe it's using some format to recognize valid credit card numbers. Could be because I have given a demi credit card number. So it did not recognize it. So let's try to give some, valid or maybe something close enough in our user input. Okay. Let me see. Of course, I won't search for a real credit card number, but let me try getting something dummy. But where the four digits would say what's the you know first four numbers of a Visa credit card. Okay, do we find some dummy credit card numbers to play with? Oh yeah, this seems something legit. So let me just replace this. Okay. Okay, I've given a dummy credit card number. We'll stop this process. Save it. Okay, and now let's run it again and see if it detects. Okay. Okay. Okay, it's still not able to detect the credit card numbers. Okay, so there's something wrong over there. But let's try the rest of the inputs and see what output we may get. Okay, so let's try some other inputs. Or maybe let's just experiment with the same one and try to hide the person's name and maybe even the address. And then we do have phone number. And let's see whether it can hide these details. Okay, so let's do that. Okay, wait, let me just change the temperatures here. Even though it will not affect your input, so it only affects the output, but let's just set it back. Okay. And as you can see, there's one more additional property that has come. That is PII confidence score. So it's nothing but the minimum confidence score required in order to qualify as a PII. Maybe that could be the reason the credit card was not detected. So let us set it to some lower value, maybe zero point 0.5, which means if it detects that, just hide it. Okay, maybe 50%. If even if it's 50% confident, just hide it. So let's see, will that hide the credit card detail or not? Okay, the run was successful, and just let's see the masked text and what are the details that got hidden. And as you can see, the credit card number is also hidden, which means it was confident, but the confidence was less than 0.75. So it was not trying to mask it. So that's where the PII, what is it, the confidence score matters. So you need to experiment with that and see what works best for your input. So you quite evidently saw that it was not able to detect credit card numbers, but as soon as I changed the confidence score, it was able to detect and mask it. Same with the person's name, and then his SSN, the phone number, the address again. So as you can see, the address was also hidden. This is how masking works. So let's see, let's try some more inputs. Now I have the actual job application input. Okay, and we will just like the current PI filtering, we'll filter everything and let's see what's the output. Okay, so let's go to the user prompt. Okay, this is my current user prompt. Application form, full name, it's much more structured, as you can see. And let's see, we'll try to hide as many details. We only want the job application, the position that was applied for, and the years of experience. So the output should be software engineer and 5. We will hide rest of the personal details. For example, address, phone number, which we have already enabled. So only date of birth and email is the one we have to hide. Okay. So, okay, I again forgot to save. Okay, so let's come back here. And there won't be credit card details, so I'll just disable that. And even the US SSN. And let's get back to the most basic ones. The date time, that's what date of birth will come under. The date time and email. So I guess we have covered almost everything. There's nothing else left, I feel. Okay, gender if you want to. I don't know whether I've mentioned it in the input. Okay, it's not there in the input, so need not worry about that. So okay, it should technically hide all of these details, and the output should give me the position applied for and the use of experience. Okay, so let's see the masked text. And as you can see, person name was detected, email was detected, phone number and address was also detected, but date of birth was not able to be detected because even I don't know why. So date time was already enabled and the confidence score was already set to zero point 0.5. So even then it was not able to detect date of birth. So maybe we could reduce it even further, maybe zero point 0.3. That's a very low confidence score. Sometimes it will work, but just experiment and see what works best. If you set a very, very low confidence score, then you might have problems where it's not actually supposed to be hidden, but that data will get hidden. Okay. You know what I mean? Maybe there's some detail that you actually need, but it mistook it as maybe person's name or whatever and masked it. But it was an actual necessary detail that you had to fetch. So don't set confidence scores that low, but do experiment whether it is feasible for your use case before you try it out. So let's save the changes and rerun it. Okay, it's executed. And let's see the masked text. Okay, it's still not able to detect date of birth. So it's fine. Maybe you could use, in such cases, if you want to mask the date of birth that badly, you could use regex. Okay. So there is also other ways to filter inputs. So you can use a regex and directly replace it with something. So it's fine. You could actually replace the entire PI filtering using a manual uh, regex process. Okay, not manual. I mean, you have, instead of using this activities properties, you could just use some assign statements and hide it yourself. But PI filtering just reduces the work because it can detect most of these personal details. The ones it is not able to, you can replace it using assign statements and regex. And as you can see, the top generated text was able to give the correct output here. You can see software engineer and years of experience as 5. So this is content generation. As far as the AI units are concerned, per Gen AI activity as of now, through the from the documentation, is one AI unit per execution of an activity with context generation disabled. Okay, so if you enable context grounding, sorry, my apologies. So without context grounding, it is one AI unit, and with the context grounding, it will be two AI units per execution. So that is content generation. If I have missed anything, do let me know. As far as these properties are concerned, completion, choice count, presence penalty, frequency penalty, it's highly unlikely you would play with these details. So as you can see, frequency penalty is nothing but the positive values, like from minus, it ranges from -2 to +2. And positive values will penalize the new tokens based on their existing frequency in the text so far, which means you might have observed sometimes, like in the older chat GPT versions, when you used to text like 2 years ago, it had this problem where in the initial sentences or whatever, when it's trying to explain something, you will see some sentences recurring or repeating. It's trying to say the same thing over and over again just to have the content bigger, just to give a bigger content as an output. It would repeat some sentences, maybe with a changed, maybe a bit rephrased, but it would have repetitive sentences, right? So that's what will happen. And if you want to avoid it, you can set the frequency penalty to a positive value, where if a new token that was, as I mentioned in the beginning, Gen AI is nothing but completing sentences, right? So if you set frequency penalty to a higher value, when the new token, what has to be added next, if it's something that is repeated in the text so far, in whatever it was generated till now, if that text has already repeated, it will try to penalize. It will try to give a penalty to the model, and it will try to decrease using it again. So in the end, you will be left with, an output where same line, verbatim, that's what's mentioned there, right? Where you have similar sentences repeated. such things will be reduced. Okay, you will not have such issues if you set a higher frequency penalty. Then you have presence penalty. So it's also minus 2 to plus 2. Positive values will penalize new tokens based on whether they appear in the text of a increased models likely to talk about new topics. Now, this thing you don't really need. You can keep it in the middle ground of 0. If you set it to a high value, it means if the topic is already spoken, it will try to talk about some new topic. Why would your use case even require that? I don't know. But in most RPA use cases, I don't think so. You will need a case where the model is speaking about new topic every time, and then you'll end up with an output where in the beginning it's talking about UiPath, and in the end it is talking about something totally different. So you don't want that. So let's just keep the presence penalty as it is. Then you have completion choices count. Okay, the number of completion choices to generate for the request, the higher the value of this field, the more number of tokens that will be used. And hence result, hence the result is also a higher cost. So be aware of setting this completion choices count. Okay, then that's about it. You can ignore this anyway, it's not there. Stop sequence. Up to 4 sequences where the API will stop generating further tokens, the return text will not contain the stop sequence. Okay, default is null. So just keep it null. So that's about content generation. We will cover with the context rounding in a future video. So that's about it. Do let me know if I've missed out on anything or if I've given some wrong information in somewhere. Do correct me. If you have any questions, do mention in the comment section or in the community forum where this video will be uploaded. Not uploaded, it will be attached in the topic. So that's about it. Thank you and have a nice day.